Hey guys, and welcome back to the Kim and Danielle show, which is all about the human design gates. And Danielle's going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing, but I just wanted to introduce, I'm Kim Guillory. Oops, there it goes. Kim and Danielle show.
Perfect.
Sorry about that, guys. I was watching YouTube. Okay. So welcome back to the Kim and Danielle show, all about human design and the weather and the transits and all of the fun stuff. So Danielle's going to give you a little update on what we're doing. Today we're doing gate 64, and it's about making peace with confusion.
Yes. And just so you guys know, the way that we're choosing which gates to pick, we're looking at the moon sign. All of these lessons inherent in all of these codes are applicable beyond this time frame, but we are choosing it based on the moon because that's really the focus of the program, right? Where the transits are for this particular time. And right now the moon is on the gate 64, which is the gate of confusion. And we're really going to dive in today and understand more about the gift of confusion and how it applies and what we can do with it, and really exploring what happens when we're uneasy with confusion, right? Because so much of our world is really dominated by the logical aspect, right? We live in this world that really wants to figure out everything. If we don't have the answers to everything, then we feel unsafe, we feel confused, we feel doubt, right? These are the mental pressures, but what we understand is that inherent in all of these codes is really the same lesson. And it's this lesson trying to get us to open up our consciousness. So even confusion, right? This can be a gift and something that we can settle into and understand and kind of make peace with and allow things to unfold how they're meant to unfold. So when we look at this gate of confusion, it's in the head center, right? So I'll go ahead and share my screen here just so I can show you where it is. In one of the first calls, we did the 63, which was another head pressure, but the 64 is here. And this is where the moon is right now. So we understand with this mechanism that it is a pressure, right? It's a pressure to sort out the past. When we did the 63 before, it was really about sorting out patterns and leading us into the future. That's what logic is. It's about a pattern. It's like you see a picture and you're trying to figure out this pattern so you can predict something in the future. Well, the 64 is a little bit different. This is more about a mechanism that is sorting through the past and it's finding the holes. It's like looking at video clips. You get short little clips in your memory and there are holes, right? So we're trying to connect the dots of this point and that point. And this is where the mechanism of confusion, which is a pressure, comes from, right? So we don't have the answers. We don't have the realization, because that's what it leads to, is the 47 is a realization like, oh, this is what happens. We're in this space of confusion. So what we really want to do is kind of settle into the energy of confusion without trying to figure it all out. We try to avoid so much pain in our lives. We try to figure things out as a way to come to grips with the human experience, right? So this is another lesson that we're seeing here in this gate of confusion, is that part of the human experience is tapping into that confusion that exists as being human, right? It's not easy. We don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. And we want to really explore and be okay with not having the answers. So some of the questions that I have for you guys today about the 64 are, let's see here. Okay, so what are your big dreams? Do you trust that they will manifest? And what strategies do you have to stay in joy while you wait for your manifestation? Right? So a lot of times we're trying to figure out the past. We're trying to have all these realizations so that we can feel okay with our lives, so that we can be mentally secure. And what we want to start doing is really trusting that space of not knowing. So where in your life can you trust that? Okay. Because what happens is when we're trying to put all these pieces together, and if we don't really know the answers, we're going to come up with all these possibilities, and that's great. But imagine if we can stay in this space of confusion and allow things to unfold how they are. What happens is the light that comes in, because actually all of our reality, everything that we think of, our eyes are directly connected to our consciousness. We take in the world through this light, right? This enlightenment. And this is how we can make sense of why we are here, what we're doing. This is the mechanisms of this head center, right? So inspiration is really something that can come from the mental pressures of trying to figure out life. And it's only if we allow them to be without trying to force an answer, right? So we have these constant seekers, right? We're constantly seeking for the answers. And especially when people come for coaching or readings or things like that with these systems. And for me, doing it for all these years, like learning about these codes, I've come to that realization that every code is trying to get us to get to the same answer, that all of the answers are inside ourselves, that all we have to do is be present in our life, be okay, like allow the pain, allow yourself to feel the pain. Right? The pain is real. Okay. We feel it in our body. We feel depression or sadness or physical pain, all of these things. And a lot of what we're doing is trying to get rid of it, trying to avoid it, coming up with all these reasons or trying to figure out why it's happening. When the first step that we really have to do is be willing to feel the pain, right? So the pain of confusion is a real pain as well. Right? It's like, we don't know what's happening in the world. We don't know why things are happening in our lives all the time. And we do all sorts of things to try to avoid that and keep ourselves busy, try to find the answers. And really that pain is a mechanism for your consciousness, if we allow it without trying to figure everything out, that it gives us joy and an answer, and really imagination and inspiration is what comes from this. So this is also part of the abstract process. We've talked about the 63, which is the other side. This is the logical linear process. The abstract process is cyclical. So it means that we go in cycles, right? We have a beginning, we have a middle, and we have an end, and it comes in cycles. And the whole lesson with confusion is that if we leave it alone, that eventually it will come to its own answer. It will sort itself out, right? We don't have to try to figure everything out. So it's really interesting with this. It's also part of the pineal gland, and it allows us to discover more mysteries of life, right? It opens up this whole pathway for consciousness to allow us to explore things that were never explored, right? So that's really why it's there. And so that we can teach and we can be very different. We can come up with imaginative and creative ways to explore things when we're not avoiding the pain, right? We're not avoiding this pain of not knowing. Right? So where in your life are you really trying to figure out all the answers, right? Maybe you're a constant seeker. You might be addicted to thinking. We all do this, right? And especially now, like the moon is highlighting this, right? So our emotional state is connected to this confusion. Earlier today, a couple of hours ago, it was on the 63 or the 64.3 in a detriment, which is overexhaustion, right? It's like, wow, we're overwhelmed by the confusion of our lives, the state of the world. You know, it's a collective gate. So we're tapping into the collective feeling of confusion. And we can see this on the planet right now. So I believe that consciousness is creating the conditions that we need to be able to pop out of that, pattern or habit or that avoidance of pain. And all of the things, it's highlighting all of the ways that we try to avoid that, right? Even myself, right? For this past week, I've been in a really dark energy and I'm like, what is going on, right? It's like, I felt like depressed, and I'm like, wait, I'm like a life coach. I'm someone who's supposed to be like a motivational, inspirational person to like help people. And I do that. But, you know, what we're all understanding is that this is part of the human experience, and that the more we try to cover it up, that, you know, we don't feel this way, or we're not sad, or we're not whatever, you know, it's creating more confusion for everyone. It's really illogical to think that everyone is just happy all the time, right? So what we're learning with all of the codes, all of the shadows, all the gifts is that, you know, even in these shadow states, sometimes that is what we need to be able to pop into a higher consciousness, to literally like transmute and convert, right, whatever we're feeling into a higher space, into a more imaginative consciousness, and come into ease with feeling unsure, right? With feeling uncertain. I think you're muted.
I love that. Yeah, I know, because I love that. It's so what we do, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so let's give them some practicality to it of what does that look like? Because this is kind of like when I tell people, well, just drop into your body and feel it. And they're like, I hate to say this, I'm kind of ashamed to say that I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? Feel what? Right?
Yeah. So
Let's go
exactly.
to like being in the confusion. I love it because it's like, I don't know. I get to say, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. We're seeing, let's see, let's watch. Let's, you know, like you were saying, being in a dark space. Like
Mhm.
I will show up in the dark space. Like, yeah, today it's like really dark and really weird. Like I love
Yeah.
talking about that. I think it gives more variety. It's more like the Skittles of life. I'm like, today I feel really crappy, or, you know, I've been like
Right.
tired all week, or and yet here I am, and this is what it looks like. And then there's sometimes where your body is calling out to do that. But what you're talking about today is, this is mind. This is not body. This is
Yeah.
this, you know, it's coming through and it's creating it. And
Mhm.
we think it is us, or the mind thinks it is us. And then we go on this tangent, or this, I need to go and do something. I need to respond. I need to react. I need to change. I need to, like, I've got to get out of this misery of not knowing, because it's so uncomfortable.
Yes.
Instead of
Yes.
embracing it, like, well, isn't today an interesting day in all of this confusion?
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, the first thing to do when we're in that space of confusion, and hopefully we're now having that awareness of like, okay, I don't have all the answers, and I'm noticing something that like maybe is showing up in my physical body, like it's from the pressure of the mind, but it's kind of making me feel like I need to do something or figure something out. I'm addressing my self-doubt, because that can trigger that whole cycle as well.
Mhm.
And just recognizing that there's pain associated with that. And then as soon as we are willing to feel the pain, it like pops, right? And then that's
90 seconds or less.
yeah,
As soon as we're like, oh, that's what it is. Because then we have the understanding. And when we have the understanding and awareness, there is no problem.
right, right.
Problem's all that we're not in the awareness. Because like,
Yep.
I'm thinking of, you know, we have a couple of reflectors in our group, and I'm like, hey, today you may be feeling this, like, come on the call, come and listen to this, because it'll probably give you an understanding. And once you
Yeah.
have an understanding, you can just allow it to go. Your mind's not going crazy.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, it's just really having awareness of that pressure to figure everything out, right? And recognizing it's a mechanism and allowing it, right? Allowing the space of being uncertain and feeling that space of like, okay, I'm willing to feel the pain, and I'm having pain, right? I'm feeling whatever it is, and let me just feel it fully. And then like I had this realization this morning, because like I said, I've been in like this really dark energy with everything that's going on in the world and in my personal life, and just like it's a lot going on right now. And I just started laughing. I was like cracking up, because I was like, okay, I just told myself I am willing to feel the pain. I've been feeling like a void. I've been feeling empty, just feeling like hopeless, you know, all these things that come in when we don't feel like we're in control of our lives, or that we are in control of like our knowing, or things like that, which is part of the human experience. I started cracking up. I was laughing so hard, because I was like, oh my God, like my mind, right? It's like my mind has been creating all of that pain. And as soon as I looked at it, as soon as I was like, okay, like I surrendered to it, I'm allowing it. I'm allowing all these things rather than taking revenge on it, right? Because that's one of the ways it shows up, is that we like take revenge on life, right? This is the reactive way of dealing with confusion is we like, if we can't handle the feelings, then we're like, ah, fuck everything, you know, like, why is life this way, you know? And so that's like one way it shows up. Or the repressed way is like repressing the pain down, and we're busy, you know, we're interacting with others, we're taking on all this stuff. And imitation is the repressed space of this. So we, rather than being imaginative, we just start imitating, you know, everything that's going on, and kind of repressing the way that we feel. And like you said, Kim, like even when you're in a dark space, you come out and like, if you talk about it, this is one way we can deal with it. It's just being really honest, like being really authentic about it. You know, I was even thinking about that because like I said, you know, Kim, how you and I were leaders, right? And we're people that help others, right? But I've even been sharing it with my clients and people that I know, like, look, I also deal with this too. This is like human, right? So we don't want to put everyone on pedestals and go, oh, like if you're depressed or you're sad or you're dealing with something in the way you're dealing with it, that means that whatever, you know, that you're not really.
And especially as role models, because
right.
we're role modeling dishonesty.
Yeah.
You know, and where our role is to be like in it, natural, in the naturalness of it, correct? Like,
Yes.
And so when we're being transparent, then we're in our role. But when we're hiding that and we're not expressing it, not only do we suffer, but it kind of makes it last longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Then that resist, once we tap into resistance, it's harder to break resistance than just to go all in on whatever's we're experiencing. Which takes me to a question. I think we could discuss this. I don't think we ever have the right advice for anyone, but just to bring to light that sometimes it is a matter of just like going inside, closing the room, just hanging out with what's there.
Yeah.
And then there's other times where it's just showing up in normal routine with that. So I think it's worthy of discussing that for the last couple of minutes, you know, because like we were saying, like the days that we wake up and we're in the darkness, or when we're in that agitation. I wish I can show you guys the picture of my grandbaby on my phone, because yesterday she like pulled one sleeve out, and then I videoed her because it was so crazy. She was exactly what you were talking about. She was just like, ugh, and then she threw her cup across the room, and then she stopped, and then she just did, and then she busted out laughing. And I have the video broken up in 4 segments. I was showing my coaching group this morning. I was like, it's exactly this. It was almost this confusing. I don't know what I want. She's a year and a few months, and she's just like in the full expression of exactly what you're describing today. I think that's so
beautiful.
cute.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's, you know, however we deal with it, right? So, you know, a lot, especially in my past, I would like repress down because it's like, oh, I don't want to like burden people. Because that's the thing too. Like if it's in that reactive space, that's where like abuse comes in. This is where like abusive relationships come from. One way, right, is this confused space. And like, so we kind of take it out on others. So yeah, I mean, it's just really being honest, and all of us are here to share that light. This is that light, right? How the confusion we can alchemize together by communicating it. And this is what brings light to the situation, rather than just being in the dark about it and, you know, repressing down and being dishonest and, you know, feeling like you have to imitate, right? Like be, okay, I'm a life coach. I'm not sad. I'm never depressed. You know, that's not real, right? That's not bringing anything of value to anyone.
And while you're saying that, like I'm instantly, when you said it, I feel like there's a pressure, like, because when I show up, it's like the energy, and maybe it's the role model thing, but when I show up in that, it's so powerful that everyone is like, why are you like that? What's going on? And then I feel a pressure to behave differently. So all these years, 20 something years of doing nails and seeing the same client every other week or every week for all of those years, they got to see me in all of the ups and downs and all of the moods and my emotional wave. Now they got to go home for 2 weeks, right? But they got to see me in all of it. And I had a pressure to be like, to not feel that gloom or that darkness or that whatever was going on, and try to overcome it. But when I gave myself permission to be in all of it and ride the emotional wave and realize that it really wasn't anything to do with me, that I was actually, it's almost like we're catapulted into this thing, this big old ball or balloon, and we're just kind of rolling around with it.
Totally. And this is what we're seeing in the collective right now, right? Because especially in our world today, right? We see all these people on Instagram and how people just want to put out this like facade, right? And like, we've all done it. We all do that imitating where it's like, okay, and that's where like Kim and I, like what we're really wanting to help everyone embody is just that like amazing authenticity, that it's like, okay, how authentic can we be? The darkness, the feelings, like, and this is what we can bring of value, all of us, right, to humanity. It's just being really, really real, right, and accepting that and sharing that. And like you're saying, Kim, like when we talk about it, even now, I'm like, yeah, I do feel a lot better. I feel like we are all sharing this collective unease, right? This is part of the human experience of the world, of our reality, of trying to get our consciousness to get to a new space, right? So especially with the mutation that's coming in 2027. Right.
It's just so important that we're like, oh, I can't put on a good show today, or I have a fever blister, or and so we just bail out of life because it's not perfect, or it doesn't look a certain way, or we can't, there's going to be thoughts about it or judgment about it. And I'm like, no, it's guys, it's so liberating. It's like the difference between an octopus who has its tentacles stuck in something and like being sucked up, compared to being a butterfly that just gets be no matter what it is. Sometimes you get to land and stay. Sometimes you're actually trying to walk as a butterfly with your big old wings. Like, I'm just gonna tell you, as a 6'2" off the roof, it is the best thing, hands down, I've ever experienced in my life, is to be able to show up in transparency in all of it. And anyone who are my clients know that there's days that it's just like, yep, that was the crap. This is just what it is today. And yeah, maybe we think that shouldn't have happened, or that person shouldn't have, done what they did. And yet they did. And how can we be in all of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's always about honoring yourself and just being real with that. And I've noticed, especially because I'm a 6'2" in the second phase, right? So my first phase, and I'm not an emotional, I'm open emotionally, but, with my upbringing with a house full of emotional beings, whenever I would express my struggles, right, I would get a backlash from the emotional wave, because I would be, putting it out. So I learned to hold it in, right, put it down, and then it would bubble up and explode. But now in the second phase, I'm like, okay, no, like I can like talk about how I feel without projecting, without putting it on, right?
Or being responsible for their feelings. Like we have to hide who we are so that they can be more comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that that's just like a big lesson for all of us, especially confusion with how we feel, and being uncomfortable with our own pain. And all of us, probably a lot of people listening to this are coaches or entrepreneurs or leaders. And I think it is our responsibility as well to show up in that, to share that truth, to share that, because I even know a lot of people, when I would tell them, hey, yeah, man, I've been depressed this week and I'm in a funk, I'm in low frequency, right? And I'm dealing with that and all that. And people are like, really? Like, I've had a lot of people are like, but you seem so happy. You seem so this and that. And I'm like, this is an illusion that we all have in this world, that everyone is supposed to be happy all the time. And this is the beauty of these codes. And what I want to share as well is that we need that darkness. We need that shadow to catapult us into these higher spaces, to learn, to grow. What's his name? Khalil Gibran. He's a poet. He says that like the darkness is like food for the light, right? It's like
that pressure cooker. Like without that, when I was in that darkness for so long, that some people say dark night of the soul, I say it's dark night of the mind, because I think the soul is all light, and that is the mind that comes and, creates that shadow. But it felt like being in a pressure cooker. It was just so like, I could not break out of it, but so much came from that. Like, it's like it pressurized something to expand or something to evolve. So I can see what you're saying, but the years that I spent trying to fight it and taking antidepressants and, thinking that there was a problem. And I want to say that I'm going to put the disclaimer about the doctrine and antidepressants and all that stuff. But for someone who has emotional and you've been told you're moody, or you need to control those moods. I was definitely diagnosed with bipolar, and because I talk too fast, that's what they wrote, because I talk so fast that they diagnosed me as bipolar. And so whenever we medicate our natural self, I was so depressed because I lost my gauge. That was my gauge to make decisions, and it was turned off. I was so numb.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the antidepressants are like SSRIs, like the serotonin inhibitors. or the reuptake inhibitors. So even Raw talks a lot about how serotonin, like we should never mess with our serotonin, how that's so important. But yeah, you know, with it,
trust the cycles instead. Trust that nothing is forever. That things are always changing. You know, I had a conversation with my doctor about it because his wife ended up committing suicide. And so at the funeral, he asked me, how did I get beyond it? It was, I went through a lot of dark years. We know this is a 6'2", man. Life is some kind of hell. And I said, it's like whenever I was medicated, I wasn't in touch with it. I couldn't make decisions. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't it's almost as if you were like, hey, you can't handle your emotions, so we're going to take them away from you. He says, it's exactly what we do.
Oh man.
And so now I'm thinking of all of the people who are emotional authority that have experienced this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's really,
we're at time. So I'm sorry, I cut you off. I tend to do a lot of talking this time, but I think it's so important whenever it's confusion and darkness and that kind of thing, especially for all of these people who are so open to all of this. So is there anything else you wanted to add before we?
Yeah, I mean, whatever the pressures that we're feeling in our life right now, because we're all feeling that. I mean, there's this collective program, right? The transits, the grand machine, the churning of the wheel of this reality that we're all in, that is churning us into this higher consciousness. So whatever that pressure is, right? Let's try to sit with it. Let's be more at ease with it, be okay with it, feel the pain, feel your emotions, right? Be just genuine and honest with how you feel, and notice how you feel after that, right? How it like opens you up and the gifts that come from it. And let's not avoid pain anymore. Right?
Let's not avoid pain. Every person's brain is like, what did you say? But I'm telling you, I started CrossFit this week, and that's the first thing my brain says in the morning. It's like, no, we need to just hit snooze. We need to not get up. We need to not do it. I'm like, you're an asshole, and I'm going.
Yeah.
We're going to do it anyway. All right. That's it for us for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment below. We'll have the information on how to contact Danielle if you want a private reading. And if you want to come into Self-Healing Masters and do this work with us monthly, then there will be a link down there also. So, all right. Have a great